So this guy, he has a big problem. His wife pooped on him. Let me explain. Now the guy, his name's Richard, and he lives in London, he works in IT, and he's a really nice guy. And one night, he's out at a nightclub, probably drinking, dancing, having a good time, and that is when he meets this woman, Cherie. And Richard thinks Cherie is fine, and she thinks he is fine. So they hit it off, and pretty soon they start dating, and they get into a relationship. And things are going great. They seem really happy. Until... Here's the thing about Cherie. Cherie likes to drink. A lot. And when she drinks, she gets aggressive, especially with Richard. And so they fight. And sometimes when they fight, she gets out of control and she ends up getting physical with him. Like, she'll push him or slap him, and he's allegedly not the kind of guy who fights back, so he just takes it. And to make it worse, he's not about to admit to anyone that his girlfriend beats him up. Like, that's embarrassing. So Cherie's occasional drunken abuse continues. And 9 years pass, and Richard and Cherie, they end up getting married. But marriage doesn't stop the abuse. In fact, over the years, it actually gets worse and more frequent. Oh, and the abuse is not just physical. She verbally abuses him too. Like, he'll forget to do something like put the chicken in the oven for dinner, and she'll just lay into him, berating him, calling him all kinds of awful names. She'll also make offhand comments about his mother who passed away, which is just terrible. Not only that, when they start trying to have a kid, I guess they have to do it through IVF. And Cherie doesn't like that they have to do it through IVF, so she starts accusing Richard of being defective, of not being a real man, and that he's a failure because he's unable to get her pregnant. Just all kinds of awful stuff. Now, eventually, Richard does get her pregnant, and they do have a kid. So, to keep track of their kid in the house, Richard ends up installing nanny cams in the bedroom and in the kids' playroom. And these nanny cams are going to end up being important. So more years pass, and the abuse continues to get worse. And Richard and Cherie, they have 2 more kids, so 3 daughters total. And over time, Cherie's drinking, unfortunately, gets more and more out of control. Sometimes she's consuming like 3 bottles of wine a day. And the more she drinks, the meaner she gets. Like, she's constantly calling Richard names, and sometimes she'll hit him, or she'll bite him, or she'll stab him with a fork, or she'll smash eggs on him. And like one time she gets so mad that she smashes an empty wine bottle over his head. And he's lying on the floor in pain, and she just like kicks him in the ear. Like, it is really bad. And poor Richard, he still doesn't want to tell anyone that his wife is abusive. I guess he's still ashamed that she beats him up, or maybe he just doesn't want to get her in trouble. Not only that, she very openly threatens to tell everyone that he is the abuser. And in these domestic abuse situations, men usually are the abuser, so people are more likely to believe her story over his. Sometimes she even threatens to go to the police and tell them he's the abuser. Sometimes she tries to get his daughters to tell people that he's abusive to them and her. Like, it is wild. So not only does Richard not tell anyone, he goes to great lengths to cover it up. Like, sometimes she'll hit him and he'll get bruises or injuries on his face, and he'll just cover up those marks with makeup so that people don't notice and start asking a bunch of questions. And so anyway, the abuse continues, and he just lets her punish him, verbally, physically, emotionally. Now, at some point during all this, Richard gets smart. And he starts documenting his injuries. He's taken photos of the marks she leaves on him. Here's an example of a photo he took, but I actually have to blur out the bruises because this platform won't let me show injuries from domestic abuse, which is understandable. But the picture shows his arm is all messed up, and there are a bunch of photos like this. So anyway, he gets smart and he starts documenting the abuse, taking photographs, making audio recordings, saving the nanny cam footage that catches them fighting. And one time, Cherie gets so drunk and out of control, they start fighting. And she goes to the kitchen and gets a kitchen knife, and she threatens him with it. And the nanny cam, it catches all of this on video. It is a little violent, but I can actually show you a screenshot of it. Richard appears to be huddled on the arm of the couch here, and you can see that she is holding the knife. But anyway, this is caught on Nanny Cam, so Richard downloads it and he adds it to his collection of photos and audio clips. Now, here's where things get really out of control. One time, they get in a fight, and she doesn't want him sitting on the bed because I guess it's her bed. I guess she paid for it with her credit card or something. I don't know. But she doesn't want him sitting on it. So he's like, all right, and he goes and sits on the floor. And while he's sitting on the floor, Sheree comes over and she poops on him. Like, she literally poops on him. Now, I don't know the specifics or why he wasn't able to move out of the way. It seems like that would be a very slow thing to happen. I don't know, but she poops on him. And then she expects him to clean it up. And I guess at that time, Richard is recording this fight, so he gets some audio of it.
Trying to tell this show you.
You do just do it. Go and scrub away your c***. Clean my shit up.
All right, so you get the point. She's super abusive to the point where she's pooping on him. And at this time, they're 20 years into this relationship. He's 47 now. She's 46. Imagine a 46-year-old adult pooping on you. In fact, I can't get over this. How did that even happen? Could he not move out of the way? Was she holding him down and then she pooped on him? Did he fall asleep and then she snuck up on him and dropped a deuce? Did she poop in her hand and then throw it at him? Did she then use his t-shirt to wipe herself? I need to know how this went down or I won't be able to sleep tonight. Anyway, after 20 years of this chaos, Richard is just broken. He wants it to stop. And that is when Sheree finally makes a huge mistake. She gets a friend involved. So one day they're arguing, and I guess she's drunk because she's always drunk. And in the middle of the fight, she picks up her phone and she calls Richard's friend and she starts playing the victim. She's like, I'm scared, Richard is gonna hurt me. And so the friend comes over to help mediate the fight or whatever. But as soon as friend gets Richard alone with him, Richard finally breaks down and tells him everything. Everything he's been through for the past 20 years. That he is not the abuser. That his wife has been an abusive psychopath this whole time. That she pooped on him. And that he's even been trying to document some of this behavior. And then he shows his friends some of that nanny cam footage he had saved. And friend sees the footage and he's like, oh snap, you ain't lying. So when friend leaves, he immediately goes to police and he reports Sheree as a domestic abuser. And pretty quickly, boom, police show up to their house to do a welfare check. And they get there and Sheree's all drunk, and so bam, they arrest her. Here's her mugshot. And Richard, he cooperates with police and he hands over 43 photos of his injuries that he had taken over the years, along with audio clips he got, and most importantly, all that nanny cam footage of Sheree abusing him. And when police question Sheree about all this, she of course tries to blame it all on him, like, but I'm the victim here. But they already have plenty of evidence that says otherwise. So ultimately, she pleads guilty to all this and she gets sentenced to 4 years in prison. And Richard eventually leaves her, and now he's settled down again with a new partner. So, good for him. But like, she really went and pooped on him?